got a big one today. Up next in the Heat Check Scouting Report series is the ever-talented Derik Queen, who made his name as a 5-star one-and-done freshman for Maryland this season. Having been recruited out of a talented Montverde class with the likes of Cooper Flagg, Liam McNeely, and Asa Newell, Queen was thought of to be an immediate contributor for the Terrapins, but far exceeded expectations with a skill-driven game. Across 36 games and leading Maryland to the Sweet 16, he averaged 16.5 points, 9 rebounds, just shy of 2 assists, and 1.1 steals and blocks apiece while shooting 53% overall, 20% from beyond the arc, and 77% at the line. He's one of the older freshmen in this class, having already turned 20 in December. Here's how Heat Check works. I'm going to identify one draft prospect and grade them on what I believe to be the most generally important skills and aspects of their game: athleticism, scoring, defense, passing and playmaking, and overall feel for the game. After those 5, I'll grade one additional skill relative to that prospect that I think is going to have the biggest effect on their stock. That will be deemed the swing skill. Each skill will be graded on the Heat Check chart with ranges from freezing all the way to scorching. When that's all said and done, I'll divvy out one final overall score. Starting with Queen's athleticism, I've graded him cool here, as I think ultimately by NBA standards he'll be below average, but it's not all doom and gloom in this area. Queen stands at a pretty undersized 6'10" for a center, appearing to have an even to plus wingspan. Honestly, one of the more important official measurements I'll be looking forward to at the combine this year. Vertically, he isn't a great or explosive leaper, but he does have the ability to get up in moderation in transition, off 2 feet in open space, and seldomly slashing down the lane. Overall though, he isn't going to be getting his around the ring by getting off the floor quick and skying high. His 40 collegiate dunks across 36 games isn't horrible, but he'll essentially function as a below-the-rim big most of the time, and that's obviously a little hampering to shot blocking as a potential 5 too. In regards to his speed and quickness, he doesn't have a ton of that either. Rather, he's a pretty clunky runner, but there are pros here in the athleticism department. He has really excellent footwork, where he wastes very little movement in terms of getting where he wants to go or grappling for position. He's also got elite body control, able to contort in various ways around the ring or slicing through traffic on the fly, and he plays with a great 50-50 mix of power and precision, physicality, and grace. While better pure athleticism would likely serve Queen at the NBA level, I don't think this is the end-all be-all to his game. For Derik Queen's scoring, I've gone with hot. This is where a decent amount of his NBA value lies. Starting with the easy stuff, Queen averaged a team-high 16.5 points for Maryland, shooting 53% overall, 20% from 3 on 1 attempt per game, and 77% from the free throw line on an elite 6 attempts per game. Despite playing with some bigger rim-running forwards, he was indeed the team's starting center. Of Queen's 444 total points, 75% came at the rim. We've covered that while he has some size and uses physicality on occasion, he's not stylistically dominating on the interior. The bridge here is elite skill and touch that's not typical of most big prospects, as well as his ability to put the ball on the floor. On 234 possessions at the rim, he shot an elite 67% overall and 60% on layups, which is reassuring given his vertical limitations, and the eye tests back up his skill in finishing at the rim with feathery touch and creativity. As you'll see in his offensive tape, there's no singular thing you can point to as to why Queen was so dominant as a scorer this year, which depending on how you look at it could be good or bad. I lean the former. He scored 20% of his total points as the roll man, 14% as a cutter, 13% via putbacks, 13% on post-ups, 12% in transition, 12% spotting up, 8% in isolation. He is just so versatile for a big. For instance, if he catches the ball in the high post, he could run DHOs, pass to cutters or open shooters, put the ball on the floor face up, catch and shoot, back a defender down all the way to the ring. With Queen, there's almost always room for creativity and eventually points given just how skilled he is. One of the few hangups here is that Queen does require the ball in hand a decent amount, making for a potentially murky fit with plenty of lotto teams. He had a nearly 27% usage at Maryland, and he's going to require on-ball attention at the NBA level too to best maximize him. He's truly in the same evolutionary chain as players like Alperen Şengün or Domantas Sabonis, but teams have to be very deliberate with that still questionable archetype. Offense runs through these players, they're not just easily thrown into the fire as ancillary pieces. Another potential catch is that given some of his physical limitations and lack of true fallback skills, the NBA's athletic and skill jump can often prove a really tough one to make for prospects like this. We'll dive more into Queen's current and potential outside game later in the video, but we'll cap this section on a positive note. Queen's one of the more naturally fun offensive players to watch in this class, and should have his fair share of NBA highlights soon enough. For Queen's defense, I've gone with a cool grade, based more on future projection than the impact he showed in his season at Maryland. I think the collegiate level somewhat mitigated quite a bit of the athleticism and role concerns that the NBA level simply won't. For the on-paper stuff, Queen averaged 1.1 blocks and steals apiece at Maryland and posted a good defensive box plus-minus of 4.2, all great numbers considering he's not working with otherworldly size or athleticism. In sticking with the positive theme here, I think he's a great reader of the game generally, which allows him to position himself well, sometimes even in space. There are legitimate flashes of him defending on the perimeter. There's times he's able to keep great pace with much faster players. Despite him not being able to really deter shots in the paint, I think he does a good job of maintaining verticality and not issuing a ton of sloppy fouls, which these types of bigs can be prone to. And lastly, his great hands carry over here as he's able to get a hand on the ball with decent consistency, able to blow up plays before they really have a chance. One thing I'll say, a massive amount of his steals are legitimately self-created. He didn't have a ton just fall into his lap, which is notable. The cons list is a bit longer and more scary. Queen's more lumbery, sluggish style doesn't seem prone to positive impact defending in space, even if his footwork remains pretty steady on this end. His shot blocking feels a bit inflated, having played the full-time 5 with collegiate rules, of course, and his lesser leaping ability really rears its head here. His lack of positive interior impact on this end highlights just how much of a tweener he really is, and I have a really hard time envisioning him as a full-time NBA center when I watch him on this end of the court. He's just not capable of putting a lid on the rim, which most 5s need to do to some degree in the big leagues. In my mind, ideally, Queen's playing the 4 with a shot-blocking, floor-stretching 5 behind him, but that also forces him onto the perimeter a decent bit more, which I'm A, not sure he's fully polished enough for just yet, and B, not sure he really even has the desire to do. I'll touch on this here because I'm not quite sure where else to do it, and it primarily applies on this side of the court. Queen plays with a real lackadaisical nature that I think could potentially catch up to him at the pro level. He does this on both ends, but defensively especially. There's times he's really slow in getting up the court, he can be inattentive if he feels he's out of the offensive action. There's sometimes a lack of urgency even on offense. This appeared late even in crucial March Madness games. To be blunt, he can be pretty uncaring on defense at times, and I don't mean to rag on a 20-year-old basketball prospect who has a literal half-decade to fix things like this, but I'd also feel remiss not to mention it in a comprehensive scouting report. In summation of Queen's defense, there's some good, a little more bad, and a bit of a tough positional projection. I really think in order for him to become a highly positive player in the NBA, his offense is going to have to far outweigh the cons of his defense, which could be possible as we'll see in this next section. Moving on to Derik Queen's passing and playmaking, which I've graded as hot. He's a highly skilled passer for his size and archetype, and I believe this is a real weapon in his arsenal both now and for the future. On the year, Derik Queen registered 1.9 assists per game to 2.4 turnovers, good for a negative assist to turnover ratio at about 0.8. His 67 total assists was third for Maryland, only behind their 2 primary guards. Queen's passing tape shows he's as versatile as big men come with the ball in hand, able to grab and go, issue soft touch lead passes, cross-court bullets, live dribble, lobs, you take your pick. And a genuinely huge amount of his assists are actually highlight worthy. There was shockingly little extra pass easy stuff. He's at his best at the top of the key or in the high post, scanning the floor for cutters and shooters, but he's also pretty solid about creating space with his own gravity and shifting the defense in various ways via driving or even with his eyes. Star stuff, to be honest. He's especially good in the high pick and roll, and when you couple his scoring versatility with his reactive passing, you get a pretty clear picture of what makes him such a potent offensive threat. In trying to understand his negative assist to turnover ratio, I actually hand-tracked every single one of Queen's 83 turnovers to get to the bottom of it, and while you could do this with a lot of prospects in trying to justify all sorts of things, I really believe his negative ATO isn't much to worry about in regards to his passing specifically. 36 of his 83 total turnovers were losing the handle, good for 43%. That's probably a separate problem, but not much in this category. He also walked 11 times, had 3 offensive fouls, and 4 of these I believe were incorrectly attributed, like this play where I think Queen hit his mark and the ball instead went out on another Maryland Turpin. By my count, just 29 of his 83 total assists were truly bad passes, and in fairness, some of the bad is really bad. He's overzealous at times, pretty loose, and can be inaccurate. Overall though, I think this is certainly an area Queen will continue to hone and build on, and a facet that most NBA teams could use from a big. For Queen's unquantifiable feel for the game, I've gone with hot. With some of the limitations that he has, I think feel for the game is one of the driving forces behind his success. He oozes it in his unorthodox offensive game that hinges on a soft touch, impeccably natural footwork, and 1 percentile passing ability. Defensively, while not having premier tools, he's still able to make things happen on a pretty regular basis. We're already running a bit long with more to cover, but I think the film here and production in leading a team to the Sweet 16 as a true freshman speaks for itself. As I've already alluded to, I believe Queen will be at his best as an NBA 4. Non-rim protecting 5s aren't prone to sticking in starting lineups, and I lean more towards him developing crucial skills at the 4 opposed to eventually bringing real rim protection. One of those crucial skills will be ranged shooting in order to further space out his game and add more to his offensive bag, making this the biggest swing skill in his development, which I've graded cool overall. In his year with Maryland, he attempted 35 threes and hit on just 7 of them, good for a pretty measly 20%. He ranked poor or below average on most ranged shots per synergy, and shot just 56% on 2-pointers too, which, given his rim finishing, points to the fact his deep 2s, despite being better than 3s, still were not efficient offense. Oddly enough, he shot 2 for 24 from 3-point land for a whopping 8% leading up to the postseason, and then he shot 46% for the next 4 games, 5 for 11 overall, almost all of which were huge shots in big games. So that's the purely objective rundown of what happened this season. Subjectively, I really think Derik Queen's going to be able to space the floor. This is just more gut feeling based on the indicators on my end, but I think he simply has too much touch and feel thus far to indicate he's going to be a non-shooter at the next level. I like the touch at the other levels. His 77% conversion rate at the line on great volume is a solid mark. He's made some okay progress in a short time. I do think the form is pretty funky. It's a lot of upper body. I feel like the energy transfer could be quite a bit better, and it seems a little inconsistent overall, but again, I think the general feel is good enough everywhere else that even that can eventually be worked out too. Now, there are plenty of bad misses, and I don't think Queen will be set to be some high volume range shooter at any point in his NBA career, but I feel pretty confident he'll put up respectable enough numbers to at least justify launching it from beyond the arc every so often and keeping defenses honest. The grade. I've given Derik Queen a grade of 8, which is likely to land him somewhere in my 7 to 10 range, if not late lottery. Queen is quite literally one of the toughest draft evaluations I've done in 3 years doing this. He's a deeply layered prospect, and you have to have a ton of nuance to scout him. He's polarizing for several reasons, the first being that there's little middle ground outcomes between all-star offensive hub and a player who simply can't adapt to the NBA without the right role and necessary opportunity. It's somewhere there, likely within a 6-man big with scoring potential, but I'm not bullish about any potential low usage outcome for Queen. The other aspect is that this archetype hasn't necessarily proven to be highly effective on basketball's biggest stage just yet, outside of the one-of-one version in all-timer Nikola Jokic. Based on some of the different versions we've seen of this big hub archetype, the offense has to far outweigh the defensive negatives, and even then, few have seen postseason success with these bigs at the helm. To some, he'll look the part of an easy future all-star bid, and to others, nothing more than a rotational big who might not stick at all due to certain limitations. I've landed somewhere in the middle, certainly valuing the potential star offense he brings to the table, while maintaining some reservations about his general playability. Ultimately, I lean positively enough on his shooting and the fluid athleticism to understand a gamble on him in the top 10. There's a few miracle fits where I think Queen could really be maximized, basically anywhere with that floor stretching shot blocking 5, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, potentially Washington. It is going to be a wild ride regardless. That's it for this one. Let me know what you think of Derik Queen, what you grade him, where you draft him, drop who you want to see in the next heat check. We'll see you next time.